So I'm like, dang, what the fuck is this about, Dion? Like,
yeah.
you break up with me and you go marry my man, but I know it's all play. You know what I'm saying? And then,
yeah, no. That's interesting. You know why that's interesting? Because you were seeing very early on how life and relationships and love works.
Yeah, that was bullshit, though. I just thought that was bullshit because Dion Cunningham had braces, and I was kind of afraid to kiss Dion Cunningham because as a child, you always heard, hey, you know, the dudes always talk, man, don't kiss her, man. She got braces. You gonna get stuck. I was like, oh, how the fuck I'm gonna get stuck with somebody who got braces, right? So,
did you have braces as well? I've heard that.
I didn't have braces.
When two kids with braces, they were saying you can't kiss.
Dude, I don't know. I didn't have braces. I didn't have braces at all, but she did. Okay. Have braces. But yeah, Dion Cunningham, she kind of made an imprint. But I kind of got over Dion Cunningham. I started to talk to this young lady. Her name was Natalie Radway. So so Chris, if my best friend Chris is listening, this is Natalie Radway. So I was dating, or what we used to say back in the day, not dating, going with. I was going.
You were going with.
Yeah, I was going with Natalie Radway, right? Not knowing that Natalie Radway was going with my best friend Chris. But see, we wasn't best friends then. You know what I'm saying? We was just neighborhood dudes. Like, we all knew each other. So come to find out, we talking and shit. We talking, me and my friends at that time, Chris, we talking, we riding bikes and whatever. He was like, yo, man, I'm about to go home. My girl about to come over. And I'm like, all right, who's your girl? Natalie. I said, Natalie? He was like, yeah. I said, wait, Natalie Bradway? He was like, yeah. I was like, hold on, dude. I'm dating her too. He was like, really? I was like, yo, it's all good. I ain't gonna even fight over it. If that's you, that's you. Go ahead and, do what you do. So from their point, me and him built a relationship that no female could get between us because our relationship was stronger than that. That actually solidified our relationship right then and there at an early age. And this was almost out of elementary school that we established this at a young age. So till this day, we've been knowing each other for almost 20 plus years now. So from college to life, we never allowed any female energy or any female mishaps come between us as being friends, as being homies.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So Natalie Radway was the person who I was really liked and oh, that's just, and I thought she was exotic because she was from Jamaica or whatever.
Yeah, that's super hilarious. But no, it sounds like you had a great carefree childhood. Mine didn't flow that, carefree, because after my daughter's father ended up being sentenced to got a murder charge and an attempt murder while going to trial on the murder charge. So he caught a body and then an attempt. And so he's been in prison since we were 17, since our daughter was 1. Because we had stopped seeing each other and everything. He was very deep into the streets. And in a way that I did not want to be connected with,
Right.
So my second love, and whom I actually broke up with a little over a year ago, because we were off and on after my marriage, and all of that. And even when we broke up years and years ago, we never not stayed in touch and not stayed friends and, all of that stuff. But I met him in my cousin's neighborhood when we were 10. We were walking through BVT. We were walking through their football game one day, myself and my cousin. And so his friend used to love me. And his friend stopped in the middle of the game and he ran over and he's talking to me. Nobody growing up, still today, people that I grew up with and went to school with and my cousins or family, nobody calls me Anissa. So I can tell how I know people, because even when I'm yeah, it's not my name, they're like, they're like, yeah, okay, so I gave up 30 years ago. I'm like, okay, whatever. So we were walking through the game, and he's like, Nisi, you know, and he's coming over, and we're talking. And so all the other boys are just kind of standing around and, you know, waiting patiently, doing their own thing. But this one kid comes over. He curses us out from top to bottom. Get the F off the... Well, it wasn't a field. It was a blacktop, a piece of concrete in the middle of a few blades of grass. And this is where they're playing football in Southeast, BVT, you know. And so he's yelling at us, get the fuck, blah, 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 blah. And so I said, oh, yuck, you know. So we're like, okay, whatever. So we're talking to Nick, and we're like, go ahead, Nick, go back to your game. And so we start walking, and he's still yelling, F you bees, all this everything, Enoch. Yeah. So years later, 4 years later to be exact, I'm still living in D.C., Sursum Quarters, Temple Court, K Street, shout out, you know, headed for the border. Anybody who listens to Go-Go knows what that means. So that my mom never puts me in schools in the area. So she puts me in this Maryland school. There, my first day, and this boy comes up and he's like, yeah, you look so familiar. And so I'm like, really? And I'm looking at him like, you do too. He's like, I heard you, you know, you're from D.C., you still live in D.C. And so I'm like, yeah. And so he's like, yeah, me too. And I'm like, okay. So I said, what area? So I said, well, I live uptown, Northwest. And he's like, no, I live in Southeast, but I grew up, Harford Street, BBT, all of that stuff. I was like, oh, my God. So I started naming him like Nick, you know, so and so this is how we reunite. Right. That's how we reunite. So from 14, so we become an item at 14. Then I dumped him to get back with my daughter's father, get pregnant with my daughter. Then my daughter's father goes to jail. This guy, Brian, comes back. And he's just like, okay, let's make this official. We become a couple at 16 until...
Wait. Did you just give out a name? Did you just say a name?
I did say a name.
Okay. That's the first time I heard you say a name, but
I never say names. I've been so conditioned. I never say names. Listen, I was raised well, honey, okay? I know, but people not going to know him by that name anyway, because that's not what he's known out there for. And he was a street dude, and, you know. So, yeah, they're not going to know him by that name anyway. They're not going to know either one of them. I know all the government, you know. Everybody does it.
Well, shit, I'm giving out government. I don't really get
it. So we were in this very tumultuous relationship. You know, I moved out of my mom's apartment at 18. And not that my mother wanted me to. She did not want me to. But she was like, okay, you know, gotta do your thing and learn. And I think that my mom thought that I would come back home. I never did. I've never been back home since. But it was a struggle. So him and I got our first apartment together at 18, and it was paid for by drug money. Because I was this young mom. He was this young kid, so he was selling drugs to pay the bills. And I was going to school, you know, taking classes at UDC, and, you know, so, like, we're living this life, you know. And it wasn't an easy one, because there would be nights if, you know, he literally, as a drug dealer, kept the schedule, though. He went out at a certain time and came home at a certain time. And then through the years, as he moved up in the drug trade, you know, there was no going out anywhere. Like, this was selling weight, and, you know, so it got to the point, though, if he was like 30 minutes late, it was, you know, you start panicking. Is he alive? Is he locked up? Is he, you know what I mean? And so there were some times where he was locked up, you know. And so it was just, it was a hectic life. But we had a very tumultuous relationship. And I would say that relationship really showed me a lot of who I am, what I came from, you know, what I didn't receive, what I did receive and what I didn't receive from, those in my life, my matriarchs and my patriarchs, it really exposed a lot of things that I needed to see, I needed to heal through. I mean, you name it. It was a very cathartic process being with him. And I think for both of us, because we, finally, after all of these years, had the conversation. But I had to block him out of my life. And I'm still going through the withdrawals of that because he's been in my life since I was 14, even through my marriage. Since I was 14, even through my marriage. And when I look back, I mean, first of all, it was all unhealthy. It was all unhealthy, but it was needed. It was necessary. But I wouldn't go through it again. I don't regret it. I would never go through it again. And I know better now, so of course I'm going to do better. It really wired me in ways that I'm still unwiring. From verbal to physical abuse to, and I don't want to make him out to be a bad guy because we both acted out in ways that, we didn't know any better. It wasn't until about a year or two ago that I realized that I'm not gentle and I've never had anybody be gentle with me.
Right.
Like, I'm a pit bull. Yeah, I'm a pit bull. Right. And I had to realize that, damn, I can be a little harsh, but that's not my intention, And I had to reel it back and really, take a look at myself. It's in my household. My mom was never allowed to be gentle and soft. My mom was a fighter. My mom had to, hold shit down. And same here with me, So it was like, it was a number of things, but I had to get a hold of it and take control of it and say, you're okay. You know what I mean? Right. You can take a layer of the armor off, put down the weapon, uncock, you know what I mean? So, that was one of the things that I learned. There's some other stuff. I ain't going to tell y'all all the stuff. But that was one of the things that I did learn. And so my loves were very intense.
You tuned in to WOW Radio on www.wowuradio.net.
Because we develop and internalize this like a broad and autobiographical narrative about our lives based on, the hurt, based on the hurt. And that hurt out, from inside, like with mother or father, and then with your first love and all of that. That's a man and woman thing, because that's emotions. Me, after him, I didn't love anymore. I married a man who I cared for, but I didn't love him. Like, I wasn't like, ooh, it was nothing, I didn't romanticize anything. It was a business deal for me. And then after him, it was a business deal for me. You know what I mean? It's because after that relationship, this guy, Brian, stayed in the background of all of this shit. That first love stayed there and stayed my love, and vice versa. Like, I had to block him out of my life because what I discovered we both were doing, when nobody else was responding the way we wanted them to, or when we wanted to feel loved up on and we wanted to be around somebody we trusted and be open and vulnerable, we ran back to each other all of the time.
Right.
And used each other. We used each other. And when we were done, we would go back to wherever we were. Unhealthy.
Right. So yeah, that was way unhealthy. Like, I think we're saying the exact same thing, but I see where you're coming from. I'm talking about like an early stage of development, because in adult age, of course, you're already fixed and set in certain things. But as the early childhood development, I was raised around females, so my energy back then was more so a loving type of thing, because I was raised around women. So the same type of idea outside of my house. And I tried to focus it on Dion at that time. I got rejected And I was like, what the hell is this about? And now you over